Today's opening tip, Michael Jeffrey Jordan in New York City on June 13th, holding a half-full bottle of tequila because Michael Jordan lives his best life, Byron Scott.
And he can do that. That's Michael Jordan. First of all, half a bottle.
No, that's 71% empty.
Look, Michael is having fun. He's
Is this
enjoying
the
life.
best picture ever or the best picture ever?
Well, you know what? He was missing one thing, Rachel. A stogie.
That's true. That would be, and a golf club under his arm.
Absolutely.
What was in the FedEx envelope?
A stogie.
Michael, shouts to you. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols. Kevin Arnovitz is back with us today. Three-time NBA champ, former coach of the year, Byron Scott. Byron, it was a pretty chill Friday here in Jumpland until something affecting your old team. Breaking news. It is the watershed Riverwalk moment that Spurs fans have been fearing for a while. Kawhi Leonard wants out of San Antonio. ESPN's Chris Haynes reporting Leonard has grown so frustrated with how the Spurs handled his injury this past season, he has decided to seek his walking papers. Now, Leonard, according to Haynes sources, feels the franchise turned on him once he sought a second opinion, and that there is a distrust that appears to be irreparable. And he has these thoughts with a destination in mind. Yes.
Oh, really?
League sources telling Adrian Wojnarowski that Kawhi would like to come back to his native Los Angeles, preferably the Lakers. Although Woj does say the Clippers will also try to put together a trade offer. And Woj says these Celtics are also a player here. Remember, Boston already made an offer for Kawhi at the trade deadline earlier this season. Kawhi only has a year left on his deal. So he will have some say here, right? Because San Antonio's potential trade partners wouldn't be willing to give up a lot of assets unless they feel there's a good chance he'd sign a longer-term deal with them. But Boston is a team that might be willing to gamble that maybe they could get him there for a year, change his mind. It is all so interesting. And of course, if Kawhi does end up with the Lakers in that scenario, is that the first domino that leads to a LeBron, Paul George, Kawhi super team? Byron, that's a lot of chaos. What do you make of Kawhi wanting to do this, and where do you see this sort of unfolding?
Well, first of all, driving in here today, I had a big smile on my face, Kevin, because I heard that Kawhi wants to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. So I was feeling really good this morning driving in. I was all hyped up about this because that domino effect is going to lead to LeBron James. And I don't know if it's going to be Paul George or Chris Paul. I kind of like that as well. But, here in Lakerland, we're feeling pretty good about this situation. I just can't see. And I know Boston has the young players that they can trade and things of that nature. Obviously, they got a great team as well. But Kawhi is a Laker lover. So you can't want to play for the Boston Celtics. He wants to stay here on the West Coast. He wants to come to L.A. But for me, I thought it was very, very interesting because I think all the stuff that happened this season, that kind of led up to where we are today with Kawhi Leonard, some of the stuff that was said by a couple of his teammates, the way Pop was very aloof in press conference when asked about Kawhi and how's he doing, it was always, I don't know, why don't you go ask his people. I think all those things, kind of led up to Kawhi saying, I don't want to be here. And I think with Kawhi Leonard, and Rachel, you know him pretty, and Kev, you know him, he's a different type player. He's a different type of person. I think family and trust are very big on his scale.
That's a great point.
And I think once he felt that they didn't trust him with getting a second opinion, or he felt he couldn't trust them anymore, and the locker room was kind of divided, I think he felt, you know what, I got to get out of here.
It's a little sad. The Spurs have always been the gold standard on talent management,
right.
Injury management for that matter. I think they can afford to be patient. Okay. And I know he's expressed a preference, but if Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, and they can't do a conventional pitch in a hotel room somewhere on Wilshire, but I think the Spurs can afford to be patient. I think they can extract the best deal. He's still under contract for another season. I know he absolutely can't come back. It would be miserable, but they do have a modicum of leverage here, and I do think that I do believe Kawhi could be persuadable.
What's the sort of time frame? Because Byron, of course, already has visions of LeBron and Paul George or Chris Paul dancing in his head. But those guys have to make a decision. Right, exactly. By the way, how many texts have you already sent to your close friend, Magic Johnson?
Daydreaming. I'm going to see him, I'm pretty sure, real soon in the gym. And just give him a big hug. Say, Buck Wrong, keep doing what you're doing. You're bringing that Laker mystique back.
But Kevin,
you're on the bus to San Diego right now.
Right. How complicated could the timing be, though? Because the assumption is, hey, we're still in mid-June. The free agency decisions don't have to come till the beginning of July. Do you think that this Kawhi situation will be resolved by the beginning of July? So when the LeBron and Paul George and Chris Paul dominoes all fall, they'll have that Kawhi information already? Or do you think that...
Right, because, I mean, it's a great question, because what do the Lakers need to know before they make their offer? Can they just, like, right now... aggregate those assets and make the deal for Kawhi, and then say, hey, we'll worry about the LeBron piece later? Does the quality of the offer, does it get informed by whether LeBron comes, or Paul George for that matter? So I don't think this is, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know this is imminent. I think the Lakers probably want more information before they put together a deal. And for that matter, the Spurs, again, they can be patient.
Well, it's interesting. We've got Kevin Pelton, who's great with all of the numbers and everything else. And he actually addressed this a little bit earlier in the week. If Kawhi and the Lakers wanted to make, if the Spurs and Lakers wanted to make a trade for Kawhi, one of the big keys would be the Spurs taking back Luol Deng's contract in a deal. That way they could match salaries, plus 2 or 3 of the players in the Lakers' young core. You got to figure they'd want Brandon Ingram, right? And then Kuzma and or Alonzo. Then they had that,
pick, maybe.
Right? Then they would have the cap space to offer max deals still to LeBron James and Paul George. So, again, it is complicated. You'd think that the Lakers would have the best incentive to give them the biggest offer because of what then they could also, what they would then attract. But I don't know. I mean, even if you don't have guarantees from LeBron James or Paul George or Chris Paul or any of those guys, I'd trade a lot for Kawhi Leonard, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, I would.
Right? I don't think you need...
I definitely would. And again, I think it's that domino effect. Once you get that done, so like Kevin is saying, I don't think it's imminent. I don't think you have to do this right away, but I think you do have to put something on that paper saying, this is what we want to do. This is what we'll give you. Because the sooner you get him, everybody else in this league is looking around as well. And now you got a Kawhi under your belt, and you go into LeBron James and say, you got Kawhi Leonard, already, and we got a chance to sign you and another max player. We're thinking about Chris Paul. We're thinking about Paul George. You don't think he's going to be interested in that type of deal?
I think all these players talk to each other, right? I mean, there are some guys who are not close. I would not expect, I don't know, LeBron and Steph Curry, I don't know. I'm just really throwing out names here. We're both free agents the same summer. They're not necessarily plotting and planning. But LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard have always had a real mutual respect. LeBron James and Paul George talk. We already know they talk. So that conversation, I'm sure, has happened in one way or another. And I'm not saying that they've all made an agreement yet. I have no idea, and they probably haven't. But I'm sure they've spoken. So I just have to think that this Kawhi decision with the Spurs wasn't done in a total vacuum, that he at least has some information about what other guys are thinking, even if it's guarded and preliminary, right?
Do we absolutely know that Kawhi Leonard wants to play with LeBron James?
We don't.
In Los Angeles,
no, we don't.
the circus.
That might be some of the information he has
this
and that
introvert,
he doesn't want to do. I don't...
I mean, and that's the one question I have. I would suspect LeBron wants to play with Kawhi. And there's a very good chance Kawhi would want to play with LeBron. I think the probability is less than 100%.
Right. Interesting. Well, we will be talking about this all throughout the next hour because news keeps breaking about this every 15 minutes. So stay with us. We are also going to discuss what the Suns should do with the first #1 pick in franchise history. They've been around for 50 years. This is the first time they've ever had a #1. This is our distant replay, though. This date, this is brought to you by Garmin, 2004.
He's 3 out of 10. The Lakers are 11 of 19. Dan Wallace over Brian Russell. That's what happens when you go small. Not your or big walk.
I can't believe this is 2004 and this is the
I love this team. I love this team.
The Detroit team?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty damn good.
Oh, look at that.
Goes to the line. The Detroit Pistons are smelling the golden ball.
Look, anytime we bring up super teams, right,
Some
and
of the parts.
dangers thereof, we talk about this NBA Finals, right? Doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't always work.
I mean, they did get to the
sometimes, yeah, they did get to the finals, but the big picture is not getting